Okay, let's jump in. We're doing a deep dive today into, well, an icon. The Golden Gate Bridge, everyone knows it. That huge structure connecting San Francisco to Marin County across the Golden Gate Strait.
Yeah, it's instantly recognizable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Almost 2 miles of just incredible engineering. But, while we see it as this perfect postcard picture today, the sources we looked at, they make it really clear this thing was considered almost impossible to build.
Right. They were up against just a nightmare scenario for engineers. You had these incredibly strong currents. The water is super deep. What was it, like 372 feet deep in the middle?
Exactly. And then throw in fierce winds, blinding fog constantly rolling in. I mean, it's amazing they even considered it back then.
So our mission for you today is really to get past that postcard view. We're going to dig into the intense political fights, the money battles just to get it started, and importantly, the sort of unsung geniuses who actually gave it that iconic look.
And we'll also touch on some surprising modern challenges, too. Stuff like seismic safety, retrofits, and even, believe it or not, the bridge singing.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. The sheer pessimism. Back in, what, 1916, the first estimate came in?
Yeah, and it was $100 million, which, I mean, today that's like $2.9 billion. Way back then. Totally impractical. People just said, nope, too expensive, too dangerous, forget it.
So if it was basically impossible, who steps up? This is where Joseph Strauss comes in.
Right, Joseph Strauss. He was, interestingly, a drawbridge builder from Chicago. Not exactly the background you'd expect for tackling the world's longest suspension bridge at the time.
Huh. So how did he get the job?
Well, the city engineer, Michael O'Shaughnessy, had been looking around since 1919 for someone, anyone really, who could maybe pull it off. Strauss comes along and says, essentially, I can do this massive project for like $25 to $30 million.
Ah, okay. So a much, much lower number. That makes sense. That's the hook.
Exactly. That price tag suddenly made the impossible dream seem, well, possible.
But even with that lower price, it wasn't smooth sailing. The pushback was intense, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely ferocious. Years of delays because of lawsuits.
Yeah.
You had the shipping industry worried about navigation, some civic leaders worried it would ruin the view.
And the big one, the Southern Pacific Railroad.
Yeah, they ran the ferries across the strait, very profitable ferries, charging $1 per car, which was a lot back then. They saw the bridge as a direct threat and fought it hard.
Plus, people were genuinely worried, right? Could a bridge like that even survive another big earthquake like the 1906 one?
That was a huge concern, definitely. So getting it approved was one thing, but then came the money. They got a $35 million bond measure passed in November 1930.
Right as the Great Depression is hitting full force. Terrible timing.
Exactly. Selling bonds, almost impossible. Banks were failing everywhere. It looked like the project might die right there.
This is where it gets interesting. A financial miracle, basically.
It really was. The key figure was Amedeo Gianni, founder of Bank of America.
Gianni, okay, what did he do?
He saw the need to stimulate the local economy, So in 1932, he basically said Bank of America would buy the entire $35 million bond issue. Started with $6 million.
Wow. He just guaranteed the whole thing in the middle of the Depression.
Yep. An incredible act of faith, really. And because of that, construction finally kicked off on January 5, 1933.
Which meant jobs, right? Steady work when people desperately needed it.
Absolutely. The sources mention out of work, cab drivers, farmers, clerks, people lining up for those jobs. And amazingly, they finished ahead of schedule and even came in about $1.3 million under budget, even though the final cost was just over the $35 million initially bonded.
Okay, so Strauss gets the project going. But here's a twist we found. The guy credited as chief engineer, Strauss. His original design wasn't the suspension bridge we see today.
No, not at all. Apparently, his first idea was this kind of clunky cantilever suspension hybrid thing. It got rejected, thankfully.
So who really designed the elegant bridge we know?
It was more of a team effort, with several key figures who often get overlooked. Leon Moisseiff submitted the final suspension span plan. His big contribution was about flexibility.
Flexibility. In a giant steel bridge. That sounds counterintuitive, maybe even scary.
Well, yeah, to us maybe. But Moisseiff introduced his deflection theory. Instead of making the bridge super rigid, he designed it to, well, flex, to move laterally, actually over 2 feet side to side.
Why would you want it to move?
To handle the wind. Instead of fighting the strong winds head-on, the flexibility allows the bridge to absorb and distribute that energy, sort of bend with the wind, not break against it. It was pretty revolutionary.
Okay, that makes sense. And the look, the Art Deco towers, that famous color.
That was largely Irving F. Morrow. He was actually a residential architect. He came up with the step tower design, and crucially, he picked the color. International Orange.
International orange. It's so distinctive. Was there a reason for that specific color?
Oh yeah, definitely. It wasn't just aesthetic. Morrow argued it blended well with the hills around the bay, but more importantly, it stood out really well in the dense San Francisco fog. Visibility was key.
Better than the Navy's suggestion, I read.
Huh. Yes, the Navy apparently wanted black and yellow stripes, like a giant bumblebee. Morrow thankfully won that argument.
But there's one more name, kind of the tragic hero of the design story, Charles Ellis.
Ah, yes. Charles Ellis, he was the mathematical brain behind it all. The primary structural designer. Did most of the incredibly complex calculations. He even designed that graceful steel arch over Fort Point, specifically to save the old brick fort underneath.
Okay, so absolutely critical work. But then
Yeah, this is the tough part of the story. Strauss fired him in 1931.
fired him. Why?
The official reason sounds kind of petty, something about wasting money on telegrams and taking too long. Strauss replaced him with a subordinate. Many think it was really about Strauss wanting all the credit.
Ego.
Wow. So Ellis does all this crucial work and gets fired mid-project during the Depression. Exactly. But get this. Ellis was so dedicated to the project, and probably couldn't find other work anyway. He kept working on the calculations for free, like 70 hours a week, unpaid.
No way.
Yeah. He eventually submitted 10 volumes of hand calculations, absolutely essential stuff. But he got almost no credit for decades, only formally recognized, I think, in 2007. Just incredible dedication.
That is an amazing and kind of heartbreaking detail. Okay, so moving from design to actually building it. Strauss, despite maybe having a big ego, did make one major contribution to safety, right? The net.
Yes, absolutely. The safety net. He mandated this huge movable net underneath the workers. It was pretty much unheard of on that scale back then.
And it worked.
It saved 19 men from falling into the freezing water. They actually formed a club, famously called the Halfway to Hell Club.
Halfway to Hell Club, wow. But it wasn't a perfect safety record.
No, tragically not. In February 1937, near the end of construction, a heavy scaffold fell and ripped right through the net. 10 workers died that day. A terrible blow after such innovation.
Just the scale of the construction itself is mind-boggling. The cables, for instance.
No, the cables, built by John A. Rubling's Sons Company, same folks who did the Brooklyn Bridge. They spun those massive cables incredibly fast, finished in just over 6 months, which was apparently a year ahead of schedule.
And each cable has, what, thousands of wires?
Over 25,000 individual wires spun together for each of the two main cables. Each cable is about 7,650 feet long. The total amount of wire used in the bridge, the estimate is around 80,000 miles.
80,000 miles. That's hard to even picture. Enough to wrap around the Earth, what, 3 times?
More than 3 times, yeah. It just gives you a sense of the sheer material and effort involved.
So the bridge opens May 27, 1937, an instant marvel.
Totally. Longest suspension span in the world at 4,200 feet between the towers, held that record until 1964. The towers themselves, 746 feet high, were the tallest on any bridge until 1993.
And a little detail, each tower has something like 600,000 rivets, put in by hand.
That's the number, yeah. Just imagine the work.
Opening day sounded like quite the party.
Oh, yeah. Before cars were allowed the next day, FDR signaled that via telegraph from the White House, about 200,000 people walked, ran, even roller skated across. Just a massive celebration.
But maybe the most dramatic demonstration of the bridge's design came later, at the 50th anniversary.
Right, in 1987. Huge crowds again, maybe 300,000 people packed onto the bridge. The weight was so immense that the main span actually flattened out noticeably. It dipped under the load.
Which sounds terrifying, but it was actually proof of Moisseff's deflection theory, right? It was designed to do that.
Exactly. It showed that flexibility under extreme load, which kind of leads us into the modern era, because the bridge is constantly being worked on, adapted.
It survived the big 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake pretty well, but modern science showed it still had vulnerabilities.
Yeah. Modern seismic analysis revealed potential failure points, especially around the Fort Point arch supports, that weren't understood in the 1930s. So there's been this huge, ongoing seismic retrofit program to make sure it can withstand an even bigger quake.
And it's not just earthquakes, it's the wind, too. Always the wind.
Always the wind. There was a big storm in 1951 that caused some worrying oscillations, leading to the first wind-related retrofits back in the 50s.
Which brings us to the Singing Bridge. This was recent news, right? 2020.
Yeah, June 2020. Suddenly, people all around the bay started hearing this weird humming or sometimes screeching sound coming from the bridge on windy days. Very loud, apparently.
And this was caused by A safety upgrade. That seems ironic.
It totally was. They'd installed new, thinner slats on the railings along the roadway. The goal was good to make the bridge stable in winds up to 100 miles per hour. But an unintended consequence was that when the wind hit those slats just right, around 27 miles per hour or so, they started to vibrate and make noise.
What kind of noise was it? Just humming?
Well, technically they're called aeolian tones. It's the sound air makes flowing past a fixed object. Think blowing over a bottle top. But these were apparently quite pure musical tones. Someone analyzed them and found specific notes: F4, G4, A4, and B4.
Huh. Like actual musical notes. A chord?
Yeah, apparently it formed something called an Euclidean tetrachord, technically speaking.
Yeah.
Some people found it eerie, some thought it was kind of cool, but it was definitely loud enough to be a nuisance.
So they're fixing it.
They are. They approved a fix in 2021, installing these U-shaped clips with rubber dampers on the slats to stop the vibrations. It's a big job, supposed to be finished sometime in 2025. They still expect maybe some high-frequency sounds occasionally, but it should quiet down the main singing.
It just shows the bridge is never really finished, is it? Always adapting.
Exactly. And that applies to operations, too. Handling traffic, for example. About 112,000 cars a day.
They use that movable median barrier, right? The zipper machine.
Yeah, that thing's amazing to watch. It shifts the concrete barriers to change lane configurations. More lanes southbound for the morning commute, northbound for the afternoon. It was installed in 2015.
Was there a specific reason for installing it then? Safety.
Very much so. Before that barrier, there had been, I think, 128 head-on collisions, resulting in 16 deaths over the years. The barrier essentially eliminated that risk. Huge safety improvement.
Let's talk tolls quickly. Started at 50 cents southbound back in 37.
Right, and pedestrians used to pay too. 10 cents through turnstiles until 1970.
Wow, didn't know that. Now it's all electronic, of course. Fast track or pay by plate.
Yep, and the rates keep going up to pay for all this upkeep. Looks like July 1st, 2025, it'll be $9.75 with Fast Track, $10 without. That continuous revenue is essential.
Okay, finally, we have to address a really difficult but important modern upgrade. Suicide prevention. The bridge had this terrible legacy.
Yeah, it's a somber topic, but crucial. For decades, it was the most used site for suicide in the world. After years, literally decades, of debate and struggle, they finally installed the prevention nets.
Those were completed pretty recently, right? January 2024.
That's right. They're these stainless steel wire nets extending out 20 feet below the sidewalk. The idea isn't a soft catch. It's designed to cause injury but prevent the fatal fall into the water. A deterrent, essentially.
And the impact. Is it working?
The early data seems really positive. Before the nets, the average number of suicides per year was around 33 or 34. In late 2024, the count for the year was down to 8. So a significant drop. It's a massive life-saving intervention.
Wow. That really brings the story full circle. From Depression-era finance and design arguments
To the hidden figures like Ellis and Morrow.
the human cost during construction, the constant fight against earthquakes and wind.
And now these vital modern upgrades for safety, both structural and, well, human safety with the nets.
It really underscores that the Golden Gate Bridge isn't just a static monument, it's constantly evolving.
Definitely. It's in this perpetual state of adjustment, needing constant work, constant funding, just to keep standing and serving its purpose.
So maybe the thought to leave you, the listener, with is this. If this iconic bridge has to be continually changed structurally, financially, even acoustically now that it sings to survive the modern world, where does its true identity lie? Is it in that original 1937 design, Frozen in Time? Or is it actually found in its dynamic, ongoing, never really finished adaptation?